doing? Thunder Jackson! Thunder Jackson! It's awesome. It's good stuff. Okay, what? What's happening? What are we doing? We're doing school. We're doing school stuff. I forgot. Alright. This will likely be a shorter video here. Okay. China and Japan. So our final quiz is available on Moodle right here. It's open until this coming Saturday by midnight. If you need PDF versions of the myths from this week, here they are right here. Creation of the Universe and Human Beings, and Chi Li slays the Serpent. And then here's the presentation that I always go through. So it's all there for you. One reminder, next week is our final week of class. We will not have a quiz next week because instead we have a few readings and then our paper or project and the final exam. If you look here, the final exam is due by next... Hang on, I gotta fix that. I gotta fix that. It should be due by next Friday, not next Saturday, by next Friday. The reason for that is I have to get grades in by next weekend to the department. So there's no time for me to accept late submissions, which also means that I cannot accept your essay or creative project late. You have to get that in on time. This is a final exam study guide. I usually give this to the students. Let me modify it a bit. Let me just update it a little bit, and I'll send it out to you later. Only other thing I want to mention about next week is that, yes, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 readings. Yes, there are 7 readings. But look at this. 5 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages, 6 pages, 6 pages, 4 pages. I mean, we're looking at 25, 30 pages total over the whole week. It's not that much. Not that much. So these myths right here, we like I said, we will not have a quiz on those, but they will appear on the final exam, so you will need to be familiar with them. All right. Let's talk China and Japan today. Let's talk the Far East. Do we know what this is? The yin and the yang. Do we know which is which? It's very specific which one is which. Ah, dang it. Let me open up to the part of the book where we need to be. Part of the book where we need to be. After the two gods had fashioned heaven and earth, it came to pass that they became separate in form and function. They divided into yin and yang gathered into himself all that was bright and light, and yin gathered into herself all that was dark and heavy. So yang, the light principle, the male principle, is light and warm and airy and buoyant, I guess. And yin, the female principle, the dark principle, is cold and solid and firm and reassuring, I guess, foundational. Okay. China. So China has the world's largest population with over 1.3 billion with a B people, but only the 3rd largest land size. Other land sizes, as far as countries go, Russia and Canada? I'm gonna say Russia and Canada. That sounds right. It feels right in the chest. It feels right. 2nd largest economy. There's many languages spoken here. There's not just one Chinese language. There's many, and it's not even so much as different dialects or different accents. The languages are different enough that most major broadcasts will have subtitles for the language, just to help anyone who's maybe not familiar with the language being spoken. The Han Dynasty was one of China's longest major dynasties. It spanned over, look at that, 400 years. It was even so big and powerful at one point it rivaled the size and power of the Roman Empire in the West. That's how significant this empire was at its peak. They opened the Silk Road to Europe. It was a major economic achievement. And its influence lasts today. It was such an influential, powerful dynasty that modern ethnic Chinese refer to themselves as Han Rem, or Han people. Most present-day Chinese people can claim some sort of lineage to this dynasty from a long, long time ago. In 2013, the Qin Emperor of China ordered all books not about medicine, prophecy, or farming burned. The Han Dynasty instituted the teachings of Confucius. See, if this was a in-person class, we would watch a short video about Confucius. But I don't know, we don't really have time for that. So Confucius is, if you took religion, if you took comparative religion with me, we talk about Confucianism in there. It's quite interesting because it's not like a traditional religion. It's more of a social hierarchy. It's a way of living among each other in a society. So Conqi, or Confucius, was an influential philosopher, teacher, political figure, focused on 6 main arts: archery, calligraphy, computation, music, chariot driving, and rituals. If you remember what Dharma is in the Ramayana, kind of like the way you're supposed to live your life, right? Your natural path in life. But part of that was an emphasis on family structure and family respect, right? Giving deference, giving love and respect to one's parents. That's also very, very strongly reinforced in Confucianism. Such that your elders are above you because they're more wise, your parents are above you because they're more wise, and they created you, those kinds of things. I think I have this picture here just because of the yin and yang. I can't imagine any other reason. All right, so the first part of this myth, the creation of the universe and human beings, yang and yin. So like I said, yang is the male aspect, airy, bright, light, warm. He drifted up to form the skies. As Beth created the sun, and he holds the sun and the moon and the stars within him. Yin, on the other hand, is the female aspect. She's solid and dark and heavy and thick and cold and watery. She sank down in to form the earth. Her breath created the moon, and it's more of a square shape. She holds the rivers and seas and dust within her. Now, I'll tell you, this video is probably going to be faster because these are pretty quick myths. The second part of this myth, Nakua, is a bit more substantial. She is the Chinese divine foremother of humans. She created humans from clay, right? We get that in the myth here. Yes, here we go. And so Nakua glided along the Yellow River, and she decided to use the yellow earth of this riverbed to form human beings. She took handfuls of wet clay and formed them into little people. She made them look almost like her, but instead of dragon tails, she gave each one of them 2 legs to match their 2 arms. And she even devises a shortcut to this, right? She realizes that making each person by hand is a long and tedious and laborious and just difficult process. So what does she do? She gets creative. As she glided along the shore of the river, it came to pass that she soon spied a twisted rope. She picked up the rope. She held one end, but placed the rest of the rope on the wet clay of the riverbed. Then she rolled the rope around in the wet clay, and as she turned it, Nakua was delighted to see that, as she had hoped, the wet clay was sticking to it. And she shook it, and each drop of clay that fell off became a human being. So that's how she kind of sped up the process. She does, so I thought it was interesting in here that even though this myth comes before Panku in our book, she makes mention of Panku, of what happened at the very beginning. And as she traveled, she admired all the beautiful forms that had emerged from Panku's corpse. So this happens after Panku has died and has created the world that we know. Is this? Yeah, that's all I have for her. I will tell you this. I didn't put it in here, but there is a part in the myth here where she has to kind of fix the world, right? The world gets messed up and she fixes it. So let's see here. It came to pass that Kung Kung, an age-old god, became so angry at another god that he attacked him. But Kung Kung did not look where he was going, and so he rammed his head into one of the mountains that supports the sky. The mountain came tumbling to the ground, and as it fell, it tore a great hole in the sky, and it caused the earth to crack open in many places. So she fixes this. Listen to this. Okay, it's back. It's happening again. You can't get away from it. Rivers overflowed their banks, and torrents of underground water gushed forth from other fissures. These surging waters flooded the land and created a vast sea where once there had been villages and farms. Now everything was at the bottom of the sea. What is it? It's a global catastrophic flood again. It's happening again. Let's see here. So how does she fix it? She removed the 4 legs from a giant tortoise and used one at each corner of the earth as an additional pillar to support the sky. So she holds up the sky with the legs of a giant tortoise. She fixes the world after Kung Kung accidentally knocks it down. The last one of our Chinese myths here is Panku or Pangu. He is the first living being and creator of all things. So this cosmic egg here, this is not unique. There are other myths that use the idea of some sort of giant cosmic egg that gods either go into or come out of. We saw this in Hindu mythology. After Shiva intensifies the sun and burns away all of creation, all that remains is one egg, and that's where Brahma is. He's inside the egg and he comes out. Same thing here. Panku is inside the egg when we begin this myth. He emerges. He separates yin and yang with an axe, creating the earth and the sky. Remember, yang is the warm, light, airy element, so it goes up, and yin goes down because it's the dark, heavy, watery element. He holds up the sky, right? So the sky is the top half of the egg. He's holding up the top half of the egg. The bottom half of the egg is the world beneath him. And he's holding up the sky because if it falls, it will crush us. It will crush the earth and everything on it. And he's pushing it up, pushing it up, pushing it up. And eventually, over eons, over millions of years, he gets it high enough that he can let go and it won't fall anymore. And he does finally get that way, but by that time, he's so exhausted over so many times that he dies. He dies from exhaustion, and from his body, all living things emerge. So let's read about that. And so it came to pass that Panku's corpse gave shape and substance to the universe. His head formed the mountain of the east. What other myth have we read where a head forms a mountain? Enuma Elish, right? Marduk separates Tiamat's head from her body and uses her head as a mountain with rivers flowing from her eyes. His right arm formed the mountain of the north. His feet formed the mountains of the west. His left arm formed the mountain of the south, and his torso formed the mountain in the center. These 5 sacred mountains defined the 4 corners of the square earth and its center. Each stood firmly upon the earth like a giant stone column, and each did its part to hold up the heavens. From his hair came the planets and stars. His left eye became the sun. His right eye became the moon. His voice became lightning. His perspiration and body fluids became the rain and the dew. Ooh, that's nice. It's nice. So every time it rains, it's a little bit of God sweat on you. That's nice. It doesn't smell like sweat. It smells like rain. Maybe that's what God sweat smells like. Like rain. Anyway. Panku. Okay. So I wanted to revisit this here real quick. Here is our cosmic egg. So we're almost done with the semester. We only have 1 week left. We have seen most of these creation motifs. We've seen division of primordial unity, which includes the cosmic eggs, so the separation of primordial unity. Conjunction of primal elements, we've had that. The frost giant Ymir. The frost giant Ymir was created when the waters mixed, the ice and the fire mixed and created Ymir. Dave's favor, we've seen a lot. Garrett creating humans from some natural source. So divine emission, right? The Bumba creating the world from his tummy aches. Okay, so at the beginning of yin and yang, what happens? What exists before yin and yang exist? Well, what existed before the Egyptian myth started? Before Ra, before Ta. He has another name. I'm trying to remember his other name. It's Ra. I don't remember. Chaos. It's chaos. It's nothingness. It's swirling vortices. It's black holes. It's nothing. In a time long past before heaven and earth came to be, there was only chaos. Same thing here. There was only chaos. And listen to this. So what happened from the combination of the complex essences? The complex essence of yang and yin became the 4 seasons that dwell on earth in an endless cycle. And the essence of the 4 seasons became the 10,000 things in nature that populate the earth. So again, all things come from yin and yang here, from the mixing, from the melding, from the combining of these 2 primordial elements. The vapor that was dense and cloudy took the form of insects, and the vapor that was pure took the form of human beings. So in this myth, this beginning, the yin and yang myth, human beings just kind of evolved, kind of formed on their own. So there you go. Nukua, it's a really nice quilt patch here for creating humans. So we talked about the rope, right? The rope helped her speed up her process. So this reminded me of the creation of the universe and Ife, right? Obatala, Olakun, Obatala, Olarun, Orunmila, Olarun, Olakun, Obatala. So in Obatala's myth, he created people, but he started to make mistakes, and he was very regretful for that. In Nukua's myth, she also makes humans. Let's see here. What does it talk about differences here? Here we go. Nukua was pleased that she had created her little people faster and more easily, but her 2 methods did not create exactly the same type of human beings. The people whom Nukua had fashioned by hand from the rich yellow earth of the riverbed were born high-born, wealthy, and intelligent. But the people who had been fallen in drops from her rope were low-born, poor, common folk. Nevertheless, okay. So again, I think this is fascinating. I'm really interested in how a creation myth like this can explain classes of people, can explain stations. You were born here. Your neighbor is much more successful and better looking than you. Well, there's an explanation for that in the creation myth itself. I think that's fascinating. So again, we have the myth explaining why people are different, why people are born differently or have different experiences in their life. It's just a different reason in Nukua than it was in Obatala. And then the rivers, so there's an explanation for why the rivers flow the east. And again, I love this part, right? Go back to Egypt when it talked about why there's 365 days and not 360 days. Those kinds of, or Demeter and Persephone, why the seasons, she's upset half the year and she's happy half the year. Those kinds of real-life explanations are my favorite thing in all these myths. Here's another one. So, right after she put the legs of the giant tortoise up, Nukua repaired the devastation that Kungun had so thoughtlessly created, but she knew of no way to raise the northeast corner of the earth on which the 5th pillar had fallen. And so from that day to this, that land is lower than the rest of China, and rivers flow eastward across the land and into the sea. Right? If you want to tell me some tectonic geological explanation for why the river flows eastward into the sea, it's elevation, right? The land slopes down that way. That's why the river flows backwards. But no, this is a much more interesting explanation for that. She couldn't find a way to prop up that 5th corner, and so the whole world just kind of slanted down that way. Panku. Ha ha ha, funny chicken and egg joke, ha ha. So, he holds this guy up, like I said, for a long time, 18,000 years. And at the end of that, his replacement is nothing. He doesn't have a replacement. He doesn't need one by that time because the eggshell will stay up by itself. We talked about that. Everything was made, all the living things were made from his body. His flesh formed the soil of the earth, while his blood and semen became the oceans and rivers that encircle it. His veins and muscles gave shape to the earth's surface. His teeth and his bones formed rocks and minerals, while his bone marrow became jade and pearls. From his hair on his body came forth trees, plants, and flowers. Oh, listen to this. My phone is ringing. Listen to this. Panku's breath blew upon the mites that lived upon his skin, and these mites became fish, animals, and the black-haired people. So, in this myth, we are, much like Ymir, how the dwarves were created from the maggots that crawled around in his flesh. We are the mites, the little skin mites, the little pests that crawled all around Panku's body. Well, that's us. That's nice. That's nice. Okay, so that's it. That's all for China. China's an interesting mythology here because there's not a prevailing religion. There's not it's much more of an well, it's a different culture, right? It's not as religion focused as many of the other countries in the world are. And so these creation myths they're looked at as myths, as stories of the beginning, but they're not, I don't know, they're looked at differently in Japan. Next is Chile slays the serpent. And I want to talk about tricksters here for a second. If we had more time, if we had more of a semester, really, then we would talk about coyote, we would talk about raven, some of the Native American tricksters, and the myths that surround them. The trickster character is a very important and interesting and valuable character. They're cunning, they're quick-witted, they're mischievous, they're not evil, they're not villainous normally, but they do cause a lot of problems. They get in a lot of trouble, they cause problems for people, they're selfish, they're self-centered, that they help us out, like Loki, right? We didn't talk about the theft of Thor's hammer, but that's a good example of how Loki, being a trickster, creates the problem, but also helps solve the problem at the same time. So types, we have creator, we can bring culture, like Prometheus is a Greek trickster who brought fire down to humans, making mischief, blah, 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 blah. And I think tricksters are important because they serve a good purpose. The rules of society are such that there are certain actions that we cannot do and not suffer consequences for, right? We can't kill someone and get off scot-free normally. And if people know we did it, then we can't get off scot-free. If we steal something, that's wrong. Incest is wrong. Cannibalism is wrong. It varies based on culture to culture, but there are some foundational taboos that we cannot cross. The tricksters can. The whole point of the trickster character is to push the envelope, to see what we can get away with in story form from an entertainment purpose. We can fulfill wishes here. Even our darkest, our forbidden wishes, like, ooh, I wish I could do this and no one would catch me. The tricksters can do that because it's a story, and the tricksters, they can get away with it. I would say the Joker is a trickster here. This is a good quote from Leonard and McClure. The trickster, by his very transgressions, celebrates and helps maintain the rules, the social structures, which are also central to what we are. And in all his contradictions, the trickster teaches us to reach for what we desire and to laugh at ourselves when we fall short. That's a very important part of this. To be able to recognize the ridiculousness in ourselves, to be able to look at the silliness of ourselves and celebrate that, and revel in it and accept it and celebrate it. I say celebrate it. A society will run more smoothly if we're able to do that. If we don't take ourselves too seriously, things just, people get along. People, I don't know. It seems like everything goes more smoothly. People get along. People can coexist if they just don't get all worked up. Just relax. It's fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I think his name's Q. I'm not a huge Star Trek dude, but I'm pretty sure that's Q. He's apparently some god who can do whatever he wants, and he causes a lot of problems. Here's another quote. As members of society, we don't steal or commit adultery or cheat or lie or do whatever we feel like whenever we please, because to behave selfishly rips the social fabric. If we behave selfishly, we are not considering the needs of others. We're only focusing on ourselves. The trickster transgresses the most fundamental rules of any society, including breaking taboos, even against incest and cannibalism. So even those taboo rules the tricksters can do. Wile E. Coyote is a trickster. Here are some famous tricksters: Hermes, Prometheus, Chile, and the one we're about to read, Maui. I'm sad. I had to cut all the South Pacific Polynesian myths. The Maui myths, the New Zealand myths are pretty interesting. They're pretty fun too. Loki is one. Coyote is one from North America. Anansi is from Africa. Bugs Bunny, those kind of people. Okay, so let's talk about the myth specifically. We're still in China. It involves a monstrous serpent, and I thought this was important to include here. Serpents in mythology are thought to be forms of water gods and are tied to fertility and the renewal of the seasons and harvest. The sacrifice of young maidens in this myth and other myths implies a connection to that fertility. So there's a connection there between the serpent, the snake, and the water, and the harvest, and the renewal, and the virility, the fertility of young women, of young people. It's all wrapped up in there. Maidens were used to sacrifice because they were considered to be more expendable than males. Okay. We see that in the myth. We'll talk about that here in a second. Chile is a female who asserts herself in a very patriarchal culture. She disobeys her parents, and she uses her wits to defeat a foe that no warrior could destroy with strength alone. She is not, no one is physically strong enough to kill the dragon, but Chile is able to do it by outsmarting him. So here is our myth. Here's the serpent hound down here. She is Chile with her sword. Here are the rice balls that she makes, the malted sugar rice balls. And that's the serpent there. So, Lysander, is that her name in the book? Lysander? I don't know. It's the girl with the dragon tattoo. It's a really good. I haven't read the book, but I've seen Swedish. What's the Swiss? I forget. I think it's the Swedish novel series. I've seen that version, and I've seen the American version. They're both pretty good. I like them. They're both pretty good. I think I like the Swedish version, the original version of the film's a little bit better. But yeah, I like them. They're good movies. Okay, so listen to this. So it came to pass, with all their resources exhausted, no choice remained for the people of Changlo County but to appease the demands of the young serpent. Every year, the county officials tried to find a maiden whose sacrifice would not be a great loss to her community. Okay, this is already a problem. Therefore, the magistrates would choose the maiden from among the daughters of criminals or from among female slaves. I have a problem with this arrangement. Why are you punishing the daughters of criminals for what their parents have done? Why is that okay? I mean, slaves makes a little more sense to me here in this. Now hold on. Don't do that. In this situation, in this context, somebody just went out my front door. I'm just trying to see who it is. The slaves were looked at property anyway. They weren't looked at as people. But to take the daughters of criminals, it baffles my mind. It makes no sense to me. That's so unfair. but I guess I didn't live at this time. I have a different point of view, right? That's something that I haven't mentioned that I always try to mention, is that it's important to remember that 2020 us has a drastically different perspective on society and people than 200 CE China did, or 50 BCE India did, or Scandinavia did in the thousands, right? So we always have to remember that it's a lot different now than it was back then. But I like this part. I like this part. So Qi Li has good parents, right? That we know. So Tan Li, Qi Li's father, says. So Qi Li comes to Tan Li and says, "Father and mother, I want you to know that I have decided to place myself in the hands of the county authorities and to volunteer to be sacrificed to the Yung serpent." "We will never consent to that, Qi," Tan Li exclaimed. "We may have been deprived of the joy and honor of having a son." Okay, we have problems. "Deprived of the joy and honor of having a son, but we love and value every one of our daughters, and we love and value you nonetheless because you are the youngest of the 6. Now listen to this. She responds with a very... she understands her situation. She understands her culture. She understands the situation that she's in. And she doesn't fault it. Listen to this. "I know that, Father, and I love you for it. Nevertheless, everyone knows that parents who only have daughters might just as well have had no children at all. My God. For what can a daughter do for her family? As long as I am alive, I only eat food that, if I were not here, would nourish the rest of you. And I surely will not be able to support you when you and mother become too old to work. I can only sell myself to the county magistrates and give you the money from my sale. You know as well as I do, Father, the wealthier parents that you and mother have killed their newborn daughters because if they remained alive, they would become too much of a burden on their family. Everyone must die sooner or later. And since my life can do nothing for you, I would like my death to improve your lives in some way." It's so depressing that she has this attitude, this perception of herself in this context, in this culture. She understands who she is. She understands what worth her life can be in this culture, and she wants to make the best of it for her parents. But ultimately, her parents say, "All of your arguments fall on deaf ears. You are our beloved daughter, and we will not sacrifice your life for anyone or anything." So, Qi Li has good parents. Already answered that. Okay, so Qi Li sneaks out. She refuses to listen to her parents. She goes after the serpent anyway. And she takes some things with her, right? She takes 3 things with her. What does she take with her? 3 things. A serpent hound, which is a dog that kills serpents, snakes, I'm assuming. A sharp-pointed sheathed sword, and a large bag of rice balls, which she had moistened and flavored with malt sugar. So, what does she do? I used to have a slide for that. She takes the rice balls, and she puts them at the mouth of the cave where the serpent lives, and the serpent comes out, and he eats those rice balls, and it gets all sticky. If you've ever had rice balls, or rice cake, if you've had rice cake, it's very, very sticky. Very, very chewy. And so the malt sugar makes it very, very gooey, and it gums up his mouth. He can't open his mouth. He can't bite things. The serpent hound, she sticks the serpent hound on him. She unleashed the serpent hound. Then quick as the wind, the hound leaped upon the monstrous serpent and dug its teeth into the serpent's throat. And she ran behind the serpent. Qi Li ran behind the serpent and plunged her sword first into the back of the monster's head and then into its neck. She made several deep thrusts with her weapon, and she was victorious. So her reward, I thought this was interesting. So think about this. This is in the context, and I have to keep reminding you that in the context, in the culture of the time, this was probably the greatest reward that she could have hoped for. What was it? Chile is victorious. Word of Chile's heroism traveled to the king of Yue. Upon hearing the tale, the monarch announced to his ministers, "Such a maiden surely is a worthy wife for the king of Yue. Tell my messengers that I wish them to go forth to the village of Fukuin in Changlo County and bring this maiden and her family to the royal palace." So Chile became queen of Yue. Tenli became the magistrate of Changlo County, and Chile's mother and her 5 sisters became wealthy women. So her reward in all this is a husband, a very wealthy, powerful husband, but a husband nonetheless. Congratulations, you have saved us all. Now you have earned the right to get married. Okay. I guess, I mean, it's the king. Now you're the queen. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Last myth, and then we'll get out of here. How are we doing on time? Oh. We are doing pretty good. 36 minutes. I think this is going to be a short one. It's going to be a short one. All right, so Japan. This is a picture of Japan. Mount Fujiyama in the background. My wife is from Japan. When I took this class, there wasn't any Japanese mythology in it, and I had to put some in here, or else she would have, hit me with things. So I did. I put it in here. So now we get to talk about Japan. So this is, here's a very nice cherry blossom picture at a shrine. Here is Japan. Here is their flag. You notice there are no more rays around it, no more rising sun. In the middle 1900s, the flag looked a little bit differently, but modern Japanese flag has removed the rays. It's just the red dot now for the sun. My wife's family is from Nagano, right here in the middle. Actually, do I have a picture of it? Yes, this is a picture of it. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. But, alright, so she lives in Nagano, a town called Ueda, U-E-D-A, Ueda. It means upper rice field. I've been there twice. Once in the winter, it was freaking cold. It was so freaking cold. Well, they don't have, a lot of Japanese houses don't have central heat and air, right? They don't see the need for it. It's not necessary. So they have, individual, they have room size heating units. They have room size air conditioning units. But you can't leave the space heater on overnight. It dries out the air too much. It's dangerous. So you just have to sleep under literally 8 blankets. I would sleep under 8 blankets because it would be freaking... She lives in the mountains. So Nagano is in the mountains where the Winter Olympics were held back in like 94, I think. Anyway, that's where she lives, Nagano. Or that's where her family lives. So the Shinto religion, so Amaterasu is part of the Shinto religion here, Kami no Michi. It seeks to connect present-day Japan to its ancient past. It is the largest religion in Japan, practiced by nearly 80% of the population. Very strong emphasis on shrines, on the melding of ancient history and modern culture, right? It's a balancing act to try to preserve those ancient traditions and combine them with what's happening in present-day Japan. So this is a picture of a shrine that marks the exact center of the island. Ikushima Tarushima. So this is, we went there. Like the second time I went to Japan, it was during the summer, and we visited this shrine. It's fascinating, but it marks the exact center of the island. So if we go back, so Nagano's here, right? So north and south, if you look at it kind of that way, Ikushima Tarushima is right there in the middle. It is home to the Shinto god that protects the country, and it includes a kabuki theater and library. Again, if this was in class, I would show you a really cool video, the difference between kabuki theater and no theater. They're very different, but also very fascinating. Well, okay, here you go. So kabuki, traditional drama with a lot of singing and dancing, a lot of miming, costumes. That's where a lot of the white face paint you see. No is quite a bit different. No is a lot more serious, a lot more professional, a lot more traditional. It's a lot slower. A very small stage, less setting. Like the only setting piece really is like the backdrop of the tree. The actors don't act, but are storytellers who use their visual appearances and deliberate movements to suggest the essence of the story. So they move very slowly, very deliberately, very confidently, and we have the musicians here in the back who who are doing the accompanying music and also chanting. It's really interesting. If you want to look up a video of it, we don't really have time for it tonight, but okay. So before we get to Amaterasu, we need to talk about her parents. So Izanagi no Mikoto is the father, and Izanami no Mikoto is the female, is the mother. They were asked by the other gods to create a new land, and they were given a spear that they used to stir the oceans. When they took the spear out of the oceans, the water dripping down created the land from Japan, because that's just how gods work. I don't understand it. They lived there for a time and created a palace there, and they had 8 perfect children and 2 imperfect children. So we have 8 perfect islands and 2 imperfect islands. I can't tell you which one is which. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okinawa is 5, and then we have 3 more somewhere else not on this map. If you can see what my cat does. When I'm teaching class or I'm doing anything on the computer, I have this to deal with because it helps apparently. I'm not sure. Is she helping? Who knows? Hang on, I gotta fix my camera now. I screwed it up. Can you see me? Yeah, you can see me. Okay. Thank you, Stella. You're a big help. Back down like that. Okay. Back down like that. Here. Okay. So they had, and other children as well. So the other children they have were Amaterasu and Susanoo no Mikoto. Amaterasu, their daughter, was goddess of the sun and sometimes goddess of the universe. If you notice on Moodle, this is the banner image, right? The image at the top. Her name means shining in heaven. What's fascinating is that modern day emperors, the current emperors of Japan, claim direct lineage from her. So there's still that sense, that idea of chosen by God or connected to God for the rulers of a country. She was born when Izanagi wiped his left eye while bathing, and then she, I guess she is the eye crust. Some people say eye boogers. I don't like that. I don't like that phrase. The sleep or the crusty bits of the eye. That's where she comes from. She is the example of proper behavior when compared to her brother. There's a very interesting dichotomy, comparison there of behaviors, and I think this works very well as a myth because it does give examples of how to behave, how to conduct yourself in a society. Be more like Amaterasu and less like Susanoo. Her brother Susanoo Mikoto is the god of sea and storms. He's her brother. He's much more rude and churlish and boorish and just not polite at all. He was born when Izanagi wiped his right eye. Woo! And he is the one responsible for making Amaterasu retreat to her cave. A little bit of background here. I thought this was cool. So after disrupting his sister, after the events of the myth, Susanoo is banished from heaven. He comes down to earth and learns of a ferocious 8-headed dragon, Yamato no Orochi, terrorizing the people. And so he accepts the quest of killing the dragon, and he does. He slays the dragon. And he finds a sword in its tail. That's a long word. See, Amano Murakumo no Tsurugi. I'll tell you one thing. I like to tell my students this in class, but Japanese pronunciation is a lot easier than English pronunciation when you're just learning, because the vowels make one sound and one sound only. In English, you have like long A and short A and long E and short E. In Japanese, the vowels make a sound, and that's all they will ever make. Like A makes A, and U makes U, and O makes O, and E, was there an E down here? E makes E. Yeah, so E. And that's all they'll ever make. You can make different vowel sounds by putting vowels together, like E, like I is E. So if you want to make an I sound, you just put A and I. A, E. Anyway, that's a little Japanese lesson for you. So he finds a sword in the tail of the dragon, and he gives it to Amaterasu as an apology gift. She bequeaths the sword along with a mirror and a jewel to her descendants. And those artifacts, those actual artifacts, are still held kind of like the crown jewels of Britain by Japan, by the imperial regalia of Japan, by the emperor of Japan. He has these 3 artifacts in his possession. Tsukuyomi is the moon god. He appears very early on in the beginning of this myth. I don't think he's even named in here. Maybe later. Anyway, so he is the one who killed Ukemochi, the goddess of food. Yes. So at the beginning of the myth here, he's not named. Amaterasu Omikami, goddess of the sun and of the universe, was reigning in heaven when she sent her brother and husband, the god of the moon, down to the reed plains to serve the goddess of food. So this is who she sent down. Tsukuyomi no Mikoto. He kills Ukemochi, and Amaterasu expels him for that. Okay, there's your example. The sun and the moon are separate because Amaterasu expels Tsukuyomi after he kills Ukemochi. She says, "How dare you feed me with food?" Hang on. As soon as the goddess saw him, Tsukuyomi, kill Ukemochi, she turned the land and... I'm sorry. This is all before that. So once he does this, Amaterasu says, "You are an evil god. I can no longer stand the sight of your face. Take yourself from my presence and see to it that we do not meet face to face again." So the sun and the moon lived apart from one another, separated by night and day. Again, we have a mythological explanation for a real life phenomenon. Why are the sun and moon different? Why are they separate? This is why. This is why. So Susanoo goes out of his way to be aggravating to his sister. What all does he do here? He and Amaterasu each had 3 rice fields of their own, whereas Amaterasu's fields thrived in spite of excessive rain and prolonged drought. Susanoo's rice fields were always barren. In times of drought, the soil was parched and cracked. In heavy rainfall, the soil washed away. So he became possessed by jealous anger. Stella, you're in the way. I can't read my book. When the rice seeds were sown in the spring, he removed the divisions between the fields, filled up the channels, and destroyed the troughs and pipes. Amaterasu remained calm and tolerant. In the autumn, Susanoo freed the heavenly colts and caused them to lie down in the middle of the rice fields. Again, Amaterasu remained calm and tolerant. He spoiled the harvest feast of first fruits by defiling the purity of the place with disgusting filth. Again, she remained calm and tolerant. And finally, do I have a question about this? No. While she sat weaving cloth for the clothing of the gods in her sacred weaving hall, her evil brother silently removed some roof tiles in order to create a hole in the ceiling. Then he threw a colt of heaven into the room. A colt is a horse. Amaterasu was so startled that she pricked herself with her shuttle. So she's weaving, and she stabs herself in the finger because she's startled by this horse that falls through the ceiling. And she says, "That's it. I'm done. I'm done with you. I'm out of here." She goes... That's my last question. She goes and she hides in a cave, right? And this reminds me a lot of Demeter and Persephone, because what happens when she goes in the cave? Well, now that her brilliance no longer illuminated heaven and earth, day became as black as night. The universe was forced to exist in total continuous darkness. Without the sun, plants could not grow. People everywhere stopped their activities, watching and waiting to see how long they would have to be in the darkness. So, just like Demeter, when Persephone was taken, Demeter just stopped the world. Nature stopped. Same thing happens here. And the people are desperate to get her back. So what they do, they place a statue of the sun goddess outside the rock cave and offered prayers to it. They made special offerings, fine cloth, jewels, combs, a mirror. And she said, Amaterasu says, "I hear the beautiful prayers and supplication addressed to me. Why are the gods so happy when my seclusion in this rock cave has brought constant darkness to the central land of fertile reed plains?" Her curiosity overcame her anger, and she opened the door a crack to look outside. And eventually, the people were able to convince her to come out and rejoin the world. So, Amaterasu, Japanese myth, that is it. Not a long one, not a lot going on there, but it's interesting. I like it. That's a good one. Okay, we are almost done. We have 1 week left. Today's Tuesday. So I will make the final exam available to you at the beginning of next week. And when is, let's take a look real quick. Let's take a look. When is your paper due? On what day is your paper due? Hang on, I'm on the wrong week. Here we go. Your paper is due. Again, I have that date wrong. I had the date wrong. I had the date wrong. I mean, next week is the last week of class, isn't it? Am I just completely wrong here? Hang on, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's see what the calendar says here. So this is OCCC's academic calendar. And it says that fall semester ends December 19th. Really? Okay. Well, you know what? I've been telling you the wrong date this whole time. I sure have. So let's do this. Ooh, wait, that means we can have some more myths. That means we can put some things back in here. Ooh, okay. 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 We're going to change a couple things. I'm going to send out an email tonight about this, about my screw up. We have 2 weeks left. We have 2 weeks left. So what that means is I am going to make the paper and or project due next week, just like normal. And I'm going to have your final exam due the week after that. I'm going to split them up. So that means that final week, that final exam week, I will throw a couple short myths that I had to excise, that I had to, what's the word? What's the verb for ectomy? Like, you know, appendectomy, where they take your appendix out. Is it excise? Whatever. I'm going to put a couple of the short myths back in for that final week to give us a little bit more time. That's good. That's good news. That's good news. All right, we're good. Well, anyway, that's it for this week. That's all we have for this week. So go take the quiz over China. Again, this only covers... See, no, that's wrong. I have updated this quiz. The questions will only cover China and Japan. But I just need to make sure that this says China and Japan only. Yep. All right. That's it. So I will let you go tonight. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you soon. I'll come back next week with a video about something. All right. Bye.